Ladies and gentlemen, a very special guest on the air tonight is the creator of the Suspicious0bservers YouTube channel, also the creator of spaceweathernews.com, I believe magneticreversal.org, and many other sites, including his website, Suspicious0bservers, Ben Davidson. And tonight, Ben and I are going to discuss censorship on social media and other topics. Now, some of the headlines we've seen in the news recently, and here we're showing, Ben, a Pew Research Center article from August 19th, that most Americans think social media sites censor political viewpoints. Welcome to the show, and what do you think about that Pew Research article?
It's probably an accurate representation of the people, and the people probably have an accurate representation of the situation, I'd have to say. So, right on both accounts.
Now, COVID is accelerating global censorship crisis worldwide. Now, do you think that there's a hidden agenda? And I pretty much know your point of view, but for our listeners, what is it that what is it with COVID-19, and why is that accelerating global censorship? Did we lose you? Are you there?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes. Can hear you now.
Yes. Okay, there we go. The reason that they'll give for the censorship is that they're censoring dangerous stuff, and this is a dangerous situation. But in reality, there's a lot more to it. There's politics behind it, and both directly and indirectly. I remember seeing the tweet that AOC deleted where she said, yes, we want the economy to go down because it will hurt Trump. She deleted the tweet pretty quickly, but it was retweeted thousands of times. And, it's the kind of thing where, well, if you've lost your job and you're having trouble paying your bills, or if you've lost your business, or if you've been affected in any other way, if your business has been destroyed by, the inability to be open, and, you're on the precipice of losing your business, which is equally stressful if you can see it coming. This has been the kind of thing that it's hard to imagine people went actually along with it as much as they did. Granted, when you see the information to which they were exposed and their general feeling about our community and our ideas, it's not all that surprising, I guess. But in terms of the censorship, it works very strangely. I post about the pandemic all the time, and it doesn't really get censored on Facebook. That video I put on YouTube called "Millions Are Being Murdered: The Killer Cure," that one never got taken down or anything like that. It's weird how some things seem to get censored and others don't. Now, granted, I never really cross too much of a line. I always try to include, journals, journal articles and other things like that in official sources. So it's hard to really debunk or anything like that. But I have to believe that, it has to be more than just my method of doing things. There has to be some real censorship issues going on here. And I think I'm just slipping under the radar so far.
Yeah, well, the haphazard nature of these companies, and let's take YouTube, for instance. I did a CBD video maybe 4 months ago, and it uploaded green, and I premiered it, and during the premiere, it was taken down off of YouTube completely, saying it went against community standards. This was not like me recommending cannabis or anything. It was a scientific analysis of the peer-reviewed studies on CBD and its benefits for humans. But it was removed instantly against community guidelines, and there's no way to to go against that type of machine that just has that type of autocracy, to take it down. And the interesting thing is they don't give you any strike when they do that type of censorship, because, you know what I mean? Like, it's a bonus to you.
Right. No, I know what you mean, and yeah, the whole strike system is nice because it lets you know when you're going out of bounds. But when you don't get a strike, it's hard to know. And for a lot of people who actually are getting dinged by this, I kind of feel like they want to be on the edge. They didn't want to cross whatever the official line was. But what those standards are, it's not really well communicated to us. And I've been asking about stuff like that since 2011, and trying to get an answer out of YouTube with this, with that, and it's just the kind of thing where, like, well, it's sort of nebulous. It's up to the moderators. It's up to whoever is reviewing this, and it's always been really unsatisfactory. And when it comes along with some of the some of the stuff we've heard over the last couple of years about how much censorship there really is, it sort of makes you start to connect the dots and say it's not just all a coincidence.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Now let's get into the truth of the matter, that we have these 7 multinational conglomerates that own the media, and their messaging is what we're getting. So there are still a certain group of people out there, and my partner Leah and I can't believe it, just how brainwashed they are. They believe everything that these multinational corporations tell them. And we're nut jobs, because we've been doing research on the pandemic since its inception for months. We've studied all the peer-reviewed literature. I even had a YouTube video taken down in the same manner as the CBD one, because we were discussing nutraceuticals that could potentially be beneficial in the prevention of COVID-19. So that's the reality of what's happening. Now let's talk about the political spin. It is clearer more than ever that the media has been attacking this president since he was inaugurated. What are your thoughts on the political spin from these multinational corporations in the mainstream media?
Well, I can say that I have pretty much been a moderate and independent most of my life, and it mostly comes from generally leaning towards slightly left of center in terms of social issues, and in terms of fiscal issues, I'm relatively conservative, solid there. Interesting noises in the background there, brother. But in terms of what I the Bush administration, I don't know how much Bush was a puppet, but there were people in there that were doing really ridiculous things. I do think they had a role in, if not planning, at least allowing 9/11 to happen so it could be used for other things. I really did not have that much bad to say about Obama. But then again, I wasn't really paying any attention either. I was, in law school for part of it, and then I was discovering the sun for the latter part of it. But in all honesty, I can say that I see hate on only one side right now. I see censorship pretty much almost all on one side right now. Unequivocally, as a matter of fact, all of the voter fraud is on one side right now, and that one side is the left for all of those things. And the distortion of fact, I don't know if you saw Brian Stelter get torn up on C-SPAN by that caller when he was on the show, but it was absolutely on point. What's happening now is an injustice to the American people, and they saw it happening, and what has happened is they've really misgauged. They've either misgauged the majority of people in the country, and thought that the loudest voices on Twitter were, represented the majority of people, or they are literally just trying to get ratings because it's a relatively dying industry. I mean, that's why they went after Trump for 4 years. That's why they report things the way that they do. It's sticking to a narrative that is appeasing. There was that person who quit, and I can't remember. There have been so many journalists who have quit over things, over the stuff I'm talking about recently. It's hard to keep them all steady and straight in your head. But there was one who was talking about how they were really not doing their jobs as journalists, and one of their senior, members of the organization said, "We're not really here to give people the news. We're here to give them comfort. We're here to tell them what they want to hear." And it's not that that was some great revelation. It's kind of obvious if you watch the news with any kind of open eyes that that's what's going on. But that's what's going on.
Yeah, there's an endless sea of replacements for the people with integrity that are resigning as well. And that weird background noise, I have no idea what that is, by the way. And it is pretty creepy. So let's just project into the future. This is clearly going to ramp up as we get closer and closer to the election. And these liberal multinational corporations are really the ones that are sowing the hatred in the populace. It's not the politics itself. It's not the issues. It's the media that's creating this disdain from left to right. And there are people that are more centrists like you and I that can see it happening. But do you think that people are really waking up? And I was listening to you suggesting that. Do you think that the people that are staunch left or right are seeing that it's the media that's creating this insurrection in the public? They're actually driving the riots. They're lying to the public, and we're not actually getting the true rhetoric, which people even like Ted Koppel have come out and said that's what's happening in the media.
So here's the thing. I don't necessarily know if they're all seeing that truth yet, but here's what's happening. It's not the kind of thing where it's a light switch or the snap of a fingers and everybody wakes up. But what is happening is they are being handed the tools to allow them to become, suspicious people in the future. Could you imagine trying to have a widespread conversation about agent provocateurs before the 2016 election, or, in 2014, trying to have a conversation with mainstream folks about fake news? I mean, just take those two concepts. Everybody knows what those are now. Agent provocateurs at events, fake news, other things like that, spin in the media, stuff that people kind of took for granted and didn't really, even if they knew about, didn't really think was that important. Because at the end of the day, for a long time, media really did, even if there was a spin, they reported the facts and what you needed to know to make your own decision. And that's not happening anymore. But at the same time, in their attempt to defend things they're doing and get away with the stuff they're getting away with, they are arming people with everything, with every tool they're going to need to see this eventually. And yeah, it takes time and that stinks. But that is also what's happening. It's kind of like, I think you believe as I do that there's, we're going to be quabbling like this culturally, politically, and then one day nature, whether it's the earth or the sun, is going to say, nope, I say it's over. It's all over now. Stop quibbling. Go back to nature. And the interesting thing is how many people, because of this COVID thing, have prepped for the first time or have gone to the store and felt that pit in their stomach where they're like, I can't get the things that I need. And that will serve many people. It will enslave others into fear. It's one of the separations of wheat from chaff that is going on right now with the BLM movement and the protest. And, I do believe that it was largely hijacked and turned into a much more violent thing than it was intended to be. Mostly by Antifa and other things like that. But, what that has done is it has caused a certain number of people and a certain
You cut out there for a second. You were
Oh,
saying it
oh,
causes
I
a
was.
number of people.
Yeah, it causes a number of people, and not only a number of people, but a certain kind of person to get out of these big cities and to maybe think a little bit about prepping and getting into rural areas and exercising their Second Amendments. Um, these things that are going to craft what's needed for the future, and these the only way I know how to put it, these separations of wheat from chaff, which are happening right now. This is a big thing that we talk about on our podcast. A lot of these things are, they come at a cost. And if you can find yourself in the wheat category at the end of the day, after paying that heavy cost, you get to, either not be enslaved or not be caught in fear when something even worse happens. What's
Yeah.
happening right now is, did I cut out again?
No, you're good.
Oh, okay. Well, I think I answered your question. There's a lot going on, and it's political, it's cultural. Um, I don't see this sort of lawlessness in America and the COVID thing happening simultaneously for no reason. Um, I it just can't be a coincidence that they're both happening like this, and I think the craziness on route to the election is going to be even worse.
Yeah, and it's going to be allowed in major cities because they can control it in these cities, albeit while it's out of control. If you come into a rural area where I am, what we have here is unprecedented house and ranch sales. Prices have skyrocketed. People are the strong are exiting those major cities, and they are creating a community out here with us. And we're literally, it's an exodus. And then those that are staying in the major cities are going to be the weak ones because they're going to be the controlled regions. And the most dangerous right now, someone who just moved in next door coming from Portland says it's literally a nightmare there. And I like how you shine a light on the whole situation. We were talking about how months ago, how many millions of people now know about prepping and how necessary that is to survive and thrive in just a short period of time when there could be chaos and no more infrastructure. And you and I are talking about grid-ending events that could last for months or even years for regions or even half of the earth. So these are things that are
Yeah.
lights at the end of the tunnel, in my opinion.
Well, and it's maybe if we get, the big one, if the field weakens enough, the sun.
You cut out at the sun. Are you there, Ben?
Such
You cut out at
I
the.
am here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you cut out at the very beginning at the sun.
Oh, I was just saying that, something's probably going to happen that, has a good chance of knocking out the global grid. And when there's nobody that can come help because everybody needs help, it's probably not going to be long before people start eating each other because we're the only food around at that point.
Yeah, that's a very bizarre reality that we all have to think about. And do you have any parting words? This has been a fantastic conversation. I know you're very busy. Thanks for joining us. Some parting words for our listeners.
You make a good point about people leaving the cities in droves and record home sales and actually land and lot sales. I see these things as really continuing. There's going to be a major separation of things in the country like we've never seen before. And I think it's going to intensify as time goes on. I really do.
Once again, always a pleasure. If you're listening, proper prior planning will prevent piss poor performance in the future that you're living now. Thanks for joining us, Ben.
Of course, you have a great day, sir.
Yes, and that's a boom.